Hi, if you like the video, please remember to subscribe.
Hi, I'm Rob from roblandphoto.com, and today I'm going to be talking about battery life on the HTC One Max phablet large mobile phone. Call it what you will. I love it. It's absolutely fantastic because there's not that many times when you talk about game changers, I think, in technology, or things that really improve the way you can use a device. I mean, we all remember when the iPhone came out and the smartphones came out, and they were brilliant, weren't they? You know, we went from having these clunky feature phones that were alright for texting. Sometimes they could be okay for taking pictures, but if you wanted to do the internet or email, you know, it was all a little bit janky, wasn't it? You know, you had to use WAP and stuff like that. It wasn't very nice. The iPhone came out, and all of a sudden, you know, it was a game changer. And then we had Android, and then we had and that gave us smartphones for everybody. I mean, and I've had I started off with the HTC Desire, which was 4 years ago now. Fantastic little phone, had its issues, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then I moved on to the Samsung Galaxy Nexus, and which I'm about to change as well. I've had it for a couple of years, and then luckily enough, I've been sent by HTC their HTC One Max to look at and review for a few weeks, and it really is a very special phone indeed. As you can see, I mean, the Galaxy Nexus wasn't a small phone when I got it, but this is another step up, which is great in itself. I mean, it has certain challenges. You've got to get used to using a bigger phone. But the one thing that is absolutely amazing about this phone is how long the battery lasts. When I first got it and first started using it, you know, I would be like surfing the web, or looking at my RSS feeds, or editing photos, or playing games, and I've been thinking, well, wait a minute, I charged this up last night, and the battery indicator hasn't really moved much, and it'll be getting to the end of the day, and I've been thinking, well, it's still pretty much hasn't, you know, it's gone down about half or something like that, but you know, there's something wrong here. I'm doing something wrong. I haven't got something turned on. Because if, like me, you've got, you know, something like a Galaxy Nexus. Let's just turn this one on. You probably see that there. You may well have one of these bars on it as well. Because this phone here, although it's a fantastic phone, got great features, brilliant for browsing the internet, looking at RSS feeds. It's okay for taking pictures, not the best. One of the problems with it, and they're the same as with the HTC Desire before that, is the battery doesn't last the whole day if you're using it an awful lot. So if I turn it on, say I've been charging it all night, 7:30, go to work, and I get home from work, I don't know, about 7:15. Probably during the day, if I'm using it a lot at work, checking emails, going on the internet, doing stuff like that, probably if I've left the data connection on all day, probably about 2 o'clock it'll start going a little bit low, and then I'll have to charge it up at work, and when I get home I'll then have to put it on charge. And especially if you watch things like movies on Netflix or YouTube, it really does eat through the battery very, very quick indeed. And so what you do is you can install one of these little widget bars, and using that widget bar I can turn the Wi-Fi on and off. I've got an extra button down here that turns the internet data on and off because that eats power. I can turn Bluetooth off, I can turn GPS off, I can turn off whether it syncs or not, and I can excuse me, and I can adjust the brightness of the screen. Because if I play around with all of these things and make sure during the day I'm constantly turning the data off, only letting apps sync when I want them to. I probably do a factory reset on the phone every 6 months or so, and only install the apps that I want on there, because the more apps you have, the more battery life it uses. I can eke out a little bit more, but it's still a pain. You know, I want a device like my old Nokia phones that you could charge up once, and then you wouldn't have to worry about charging it for a couple of days. You know, it didn't definitely work all day, and I'm really pleased to announce that the One Max does that in spades. I mean, the battery, I think, is something like 3,200 milliamps. I'm just going to check that for you, just to make sure. because I don't want to give you any false information. I'm just going to the HTC website. Here we go, HTC One Max specs. There we go. Battery, 3,300 milliamp hour battery, which is pretty good. That's pretty big. What it actually means is the battery lasts a long time. And to prove to myself that I wasn't going mad, I've kind of made a diary over 3 days of the typical usage I would get out. So I'll read that out to you. Read that out to you now. So here we go. So on the first day I started doing it, so I gave the phone a full charge, and I had Wi-Fi on all day and the sync on all day, so the apps could do whatever they wanted that were on the phone all day. I started the test at about 9:45 in the morning. I used the built-in torch, which uses the flash about 15 minutes. I watched, well, I didn't watch it, but I set it up to play a whole Netflix film, and it was Sylvester Stallone's Judge Dredd, if that's any use to you. I used the internet loads, I used the RSS loads, used Feedly, I used the torch for another 20 minutes. I did about 15 minutes of videoing using the phone, and I took quite a few photos with it as well on that particular day. By midnight on that day, there was still 30% of the power left. So that's from 9:45 in the morning to midnight. So that's pretty good, isn't it? I thought, well, that's pretty good. So I then gave it a good charge that night. So the next test started at 7 o'clock the next morning. So I started at 7 o'clock, turned the Wi-Fi on, so the Wi-Fi was on all day, talking to it. The sync was on all day. I put the Bluetooth on all day, and I've got a little headset, so I paired them up. So they were paired all day. So, because I'd imagine with a big phone like the Max, you can probably be using it. You might use a little earpiece, mightn't you? So when you're going along, the phone rings, you're not going hi. You're just pressing the earphone, especially if you're in the car and stuff like that. So Bluetooth was on all day. I listened to about an hour's worth of music, quite loud. I did loads of web surfing and lots of gaming as well, because I was downloading games to test out and play with it. I set it up to play one complete film off Netflix, and that was the Street Fighter film. Again, I wasn't watching these, I was just putting on. And the low battery warning, which comes on when the phone gets to 15%, came on at 10:30 that night. So we had gone, what, 7 to 7 is 12, so 7, 8, 9, 10, that's 12. So that's 15 and a half hours later of pretty heavy use, the low light came on, which I think is pretty good. Now I still was kind of questioning myself, because at this point I hadn't put a SIM in the phone. So I went out and I got a cheap micro that uses a micro SIM. I put that on, gave it a good charge that night, and so the next day I started at 6:30 in the morning. So 6:30 in the morning, Wi-Fi on, sync on, Bluetooth on. I put the GPS on standby as well. I don't. If you ever use one of these bars, just because you've tapped the GPS doesn't mean the GPS has come on. It only comes on when an app wants it to. But quite a lot of apps turn on the GPS just to see where you are, and then do it. Obviously, if you're using Google Maps, it's on all the time. I also turned on something called Power Saver. So Power Saver is a function. Let me see if I can show it to you. Actually, if you pull down, let's go back. Actually, if you pull down the bar and then go to the settings and then go to Power Saver. What Power Saver does is it slows down the clock on the computer, it reduces the brightness of the screen, turns off vibration feedback, and puts the data collection, turns it off when the screen's gone off. Just common sense sort of thing. So I put that on as well. I had the SIM in there, so now it's connected to the data network as well, and connected to I can't remember, is it T-Mobile, I think it is, or everything everywhere. And so I did an hour's worth of GPS. So we went out that day in the car, and so I put Google Maps on, and so that was tracking that all day. I got it to watch a whole film on Netflix, and it was Monty Python's The Holy Grail, if that makes any difference. I did loads of gaming on it, loads of surfing the internet, all my RSS stuff. By 10:30 that night, so what's that? That's 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, 12. So that's 14 hours later. it was time for bed, and it was still showing 34% on the battery status bar. Now remember, with none of these days, I've done no charging during the day at all. There was still 34% left. It's amazing. So here we go. So then yesterday, 6:30 start, Wi-Fi on all day, sync on all day, power saver on. I got it to watch 2 films, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Wayne's World, part 1. I did loads of web surfing, loads of mail checking, loads of RSS feed reading, all that sort of stuff. Took quite a few photos, took some videos as well. At 11 o'clock, there was still 41% of the battery left. Can you believe that? 41%. So, that very, very simply, you know, if you charge this, give this phone a full charge, and then use it normally. So I maybe don't have on the Wi-Fi on all day. If you use the battery saver, I'm sure you get at least 2 days worth of use out of it. But even, you know, your power user who's going to be using it, if you turn everything on, so you turn your Wi-Fi on, your Bluetooth on, your GPS on, your sync on, your mobile data on, you're definitely going to get whole days out of it. You know, no matter what, it really is absolutely amazing. Now, you could say, well, it really needs that because you can't change the battery in the One Max. It's fixed in there just like it is on an iPhone and some other phones. But you know, that doesn't really matter. I mean, that's a price I'm willing to pay, because I always threaten to kind of get a spare battery for the Galaxy Nexus or the HTC One, and never bothered because it's always a bit of a faff, isn't it, taking it out and replacing it. And the only way you can charge the battery really is to have it in the phone and all that sort of stuff. But you know, is the HTC One Max's battery capacity and, you know, its real world performance, because it's got this beautiful screen, it's got these amazingly loud speakers, has blown me away. It really is fantastic. Now this sort of phone, it's very, very large, 6 inches across. That size, you need to go and play with one and have a look at one in a shop before you buy it, because you may well find the form factor of the HTC One more suits your particular style or your particular hand. But if you're anything like me and you're a sucker for gadgets and design and big screens, you'll see it and pick it up and look at the display and go, yeah, it's amazing. So there we go, HTC One Max. Well done, HTC. Fantastic battery, fantastic real world performance. Finally, we've got a phone that we can use all day, properly as a smartphone all day, and it doesn't give up for us just after lunch. My name's Rob from roblandphoto.com. Thanks for watching.